The night of the moon ceremony was the most important night in the Blackwood Pack's calendar. Every wolf, young and old, gathered under the silver light to watch their alpha claim his Luna. Torches burned along the stone path leading to the ceremony grounds, and the air smelled of pine and smoke. Elena Ward stood near the back of the crowd, wrapped in a plain gray shawl, trying to make herself as small as possible. She had never expected to be anything more than a quiet member of the pack. Her family held no power, no title, no influence. She worked in the healing house, tending wounds and mixing herbs, and she liked it that way. She did not crave attention. She did not want to be seen. But tonight, she would be seen whether she wanted it or not. Alpha Damien Cross stood at the front of the gathering, tall and commanding, his dark eyes scanning the crowd with the practiced calm of a man born to lead. Beside him stood Seraphina Vale, radiant in a deep red gown, her golden hair catching the moonlight. Everyone expected Damien to claim her as his Luna tonight. Their families had planned it for years. Seraphina's bloodline was strong, her father a powerful ally, and their union would strengthen the pack's position among its neighbors. The ceremony began with the old words, spoken by the pack elder, calling on the moon to reveal the truth of fated bonds. It was tradition, a formality most believed would simply confirm what everyone already assumed. Damien would take Seraphina's hand, the elder would bless them, and the pack would celebrate until dawn. But traditions had a way of surprising people. As the elder raised his hands and spoke the final words, a strange pull moved through the crowd. Whispers rippled outward as wolves turned their heads, searching for the source. Elena felt it before she understood it, a sudden warmth spreading across her wrist, sharp and burning, like a brand pressed into her skin. She gasped and looked down. A mark was forming, glowing faintly silver, curling in careful lines she had never seen before. Across the clearing, Damien staggered. His own wrist burned with the same mark, the same pattern, unmistakable and undeniable. The crowd fell silent. Every wolf present knew what it meant. The moon had chosen. Damien Cross's true fated mate was not Seraphina Vale. It was the quiet healer standing at the edge of the crowd, the woman nobody had ever noticed. For a long moment, nobody moved. Elena could feel every eye turning toward her, hundreds of gazes full of shock, curiosity, and something colder, judgment. She had done nothing wrong, yet she felt as though she had committed some terrible crime simply by existing. Damien's face went pale. He looked at his wrist, then at Elena, then at Seraphina, whose expression had shifted from confusion to fury in the span of a heartbeat. Elena watched him struggle, watched the war happening behind his eyes. She had heard stories of fated bonds, how rare and powerful they were, how no wolf could deny the mate the moon had chosen without paying a price. But she had also heard stories of alphas who chose politics over fate, pride over truth. She hoped, foolishly, that Damien would not be one of them. The elder cleared his throat, clearly uncertain how to proceed. "The moon has spoken," he said carefully. "Alpha Damien, your fated mate stands among us tonight." Damien's jaw tightened. He looked at Seraphina, who gave the smallest shake of her head, a silent warning, a reminder of everything he stood to lose. Then he looked back at Elena. She held his gaze, waiting, her heart pounding so loudly she was certain the wolves nearest her could hear it. "This bond," Damien said finally, his voice carrying across the silent clearing, "is a mistake of the moon. Nothing more." The words landed like a blow. Elena felt the air leave her lungs. Around her, the crowd began to murmur again, some in shock, some in relief, some in quiet pity directed at her. Damien turned from her fully now, reaching for Seraphina's hand. "Seraphina Vale," he announced, "will be my Luna." Seraphina's fury melted into triumph. She stepped forward, taking Damien's hand, lifting her chin toward the crowd, as if daring anyone to challenge her. The elder, though visibly troubled, had no choice but to continue the ceremony. He spoke the blessing over Damien and Seraphina, his voice heavy with an unease the crowd could feel. Elena did not cry. She did not run. She simply stood there, absorbing the weight of being rejected in front of everyone who had ever known her, and everyone who now would only remember her as the mate an alpha had refused. When the ceremony ended, and the pack began to celebrate, Elena slipped through the crowd toward the front. She stopped just long enough to look at Damien one final time. He was watching her, his expression unreadable, guilt flickering somewhere beneath the composure he wore like armor. She held his gaze for a heartbeat, then nodded once, slow and final, before turning and walking away. She did not look back. Not when the crowd murmured behind her, not when someone called her name, not even when she felt the faint, aching pull of the bond tugging at her chest, begging her to stay. She walked past the torches, past the stone path, past the edge of the packlands, and did not stop until the ceremony grounds were far behind her. That same night, she gathered her few belongings from the small house she had lived in for years. She left a short note for the beta, informing him only that she was relinquishing her claim to the pack and would not be returning. She did not explain further. She did not need to. Everyone would understand soon enough. By sunrise, Elena Ward was gone. In the days that followed, life at Blackwood Pack continued outwardly, as it always had. Damien ruled, Serafina stood beside him as Luna, and the pack celebrated the political alliance that had been secured. But something had shifted, quietly and irreversibly. Damien found himself waking in the night, chest aching, restless in a way he had never experienced before. His wolf paced beneath his skin, agitated, hollow, searching for something it could not name. He told himself it would pass. Broken bonds were painful, but temporary, he reasoned. He was alpha. He would endure it, as he endured everything. But the ache did not fade. If anything, it grew sharper with each passing week. His temper shortened. His patience thinned. He snapped at wolves who did not deserve it, lost focus during pack meetings, and found himself staring out over the training grounds, distracted by nothing at all. Serafina noticed the change immediately, though she refused to name what caused it. She grew colder in response, resentful of a bond she could not compete with, no matter how hard she tried. Meanwhile, Elena traveled far from Blackwood territory, following old trade paths through the forest, until she reached the borders of the Ashwood Pack. She had heard of their reputation: fair, disciplined, welcoming to wolves seeking refuge. She did not know what she expected to find there, only that she needed somewhere far from the pack that had cast her aside. It was Marcus Steele, the Ashwood Beta, who found her resting near the border stream, exhausted and wary. He recognized her immediately, though they had only met a handful of times over the years at pack gatherings. He had always found her quiet strength admirable, though he had never spoken of it, certain she belonged to another pack, another life. "Elena Ward," he said gently, careful not to startle her. "You're a long way from home." "I don't have a home anymore," she replied, too tired to soften the truth. Marcus did not ask for details. He simply offered her shelter, food, and time. Over the following weeks, as Elena slowly healed from the humiliation of her rejection, she found herself grateful for his patience. He never pressed her to explain what had happened at Blackwood. He never treated her as broken or lesser. He treated her, for the first time in longer than she could remember, as someone worth knowing. Ashwood's alpha welcomed her into the pack's healing house, where her skills were quickly recognized and valued. Wolves who had never met her began to seek her out, trusting her steady hands and calm voice. For the first time since the ceremony, Elena began to feel like herself again, not the wolf who had been publicly rejected, but simply Elena, capable and respected. Marcus, for his part, made his admiration known slowly, through small gestures rather than bold declarations. He walked with her in the evenings. He listened when she spoke, and remained quiet when she needed silence. He never once asked her to be anyone other than who she was. Back at Blackwood, Damien's condition worsened. His connection to his pack, once effortless, began to weaken. Wolves who had followed him without question started to notice his declining strength, his shortened temper, the way his commands lacked the certainty they once carried. Rumors spread that the alpha was suffering the price of denying a fated bond, a fate few alphas had ever survived unscathed. Serafina, desperate to salvage the alliance her family had worked so hard to secure, urged Damien to ignore the whispers, to prove his strength through action rather than words. But no amount of political maneuvering could fix what instinct and fate refused to accept. Damien's wolf grew increasingly unstable, and with it, his ability to lead. 3 months after the ceremony, a territorial dispute arose between Blackwood and Ashwood over a stretch of contested hunting grounds. Diplomatic talks were arranged, requiring representatives from both packs to meet and negotiate terms. Damien, despite his weakened state, insisted on attending personally, unwilling to appear as anything less than a capable alpha in front of a rival pack. When he arrived at the meeting grounds and saw Elena standing beside Marcus Steele, calm and composed, dressed not in the plain gray shawl of a healer, but in the confident bearing of a respected pack member, something inside him broke open completely. The ache he had carried for months surged violently, and for a moment he could not speak. Elena, for her part, felt the pull of the bond as sharply as he did, but she did not let it show. She had spent months learning to stand on her own, and she was not about to let one look from Damien Cross undo that progress. The negotiations proceeded formally, though the tension between the two Alphas' delegations was impossible to ignore. When the discussions concluded and terms were agreed upon, Damien requested a private word with Elena before the Blackwood party departed. Marcus, though clearly reluctant, stepped back to allow it, trusting Elena to handle herself. They stood alone near the tree line, the same aching pull hanging heavy between them. "I made a mistake," Damien said quietly. "I know that now. I have known it every day since the ceremony. The bond, it's real, Elena. I feel it every moment. I should have chosen you. I should have had the courage to choose you." Elena studied him for a long moment before answering. "You had the courage to reject me in front of everyone who has ever known me," she said. "You had the courage to call the moon's choice a mistake. You had every chance to choose me quietly, honestly, and you chose your pride instead." "I know," Damien said, his voice breaking slightly. "Please, give me the chance to make it right." "You want to make it right now," Elena replied, "because it's convenient now. Because Serafina cannot ease your pain, and I can. But a bond built on public shame cannot be repaired with private regret, Damien. What you did in front of everyone. If you truly believed I was worth choosing, you would have chosen me then, when it mattered, not now, when you have run out of options." Damien had no answer for that. He stood silently as she spoke, the weight of his own choice settling over him fully for the first time. "I have a home now," Elena continued, softer but no less certain. "I have people who value me for exactly who I am, without hesitation, without conditions. I will not give that up to fix a mistake you made, because you were too afraid to stand by what the moon chose." She turned to walk back toward Marcus, who waited a respectful distance away, his eyes steady on her, patient as ever. Before she left, she glanced back at Damien one final time. "I hope you find peace," she said honestly, "but I have already found mine." Damien watched her go, the ache in his chest deepening into something he understood now would never fully heal. He returned to Blackwood that evening, a changed wolf, humbled by a truth he could no longer deny. Serafina remained beside him as Luna, their alliance intact, but the bond between them, built on convenience rather than fate, never grew into anything more than a partnership of necessity. Elena, meanwhile, continued building her life at Ashwood, her days filled with purpose, her evenings filled with quiet companionship, beside a wolf who had never once made her question her worth. In time, what began as patient friendship with Marcus grew into something steady and true, chosen freely by both of them, without ceremony or spectacle, without moonlit marks or public declarations. She had walked away once without looking back, and in doing so, she had found something far more valuable than a bond forced upon her by fate. She had found herself.